Hi folks, I'm going to talk today about enlightenment, a much misunderstood topic which I'm going to try to give you my take on what I understand by it and what I mean by it, and if we have experienced this or not. It's not to do with the European intellectual movement of the 17th century that was all about people like Descartes, Locke and Newton and all that. Now this is about the idea of the absolute state of awareness, the final state. Can we attain a state of consciousness, a state of understanding, if we can even describe enlightenment, that the Buddhas talked about, that the Hindus talk about. The Buddhism talks about Nirvana, Hinduism talks about things like Samadhi and the Brahma as the absolute state of existence, the formless state. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, give you my take on it, and I'd love it if you put some comments below, because this is a great one to discuss, because there's so much misconception and so many different ideas on this. Okay, now this is quite a difficult topic for some of you. I'm going to try to take it at a slower pace and keep it easy to understand if I can, because you can get so wrapped up and tied up in intellectual knots with this whole idea. Now, the idea of enlightenment, let's suppose there is an absolute state that we can attain that gives us absolute understanding of everything. Perhaps we could call that enlightenment, awakening. That's what we could perhaps mean, enlighten, awaken. So to get to it, we really have to first think about the nature of who am I. For example, Ramana Maharishi said that, you only need to ask this question, who am I, to eventually get to the answer, to eventually get to the absolute divine understanding. And he told people to constantly go through this form of remembrance. Okay, but let's just have a think about this idea of who are we, first of all, what we could be, for example. So, I'm here, I'm having an experience. Who is this person having the experience? It's a very difficult thing for us to understand, because the experiencer is understanding the experience, or even understanding having an experience is an experience. So who is it behind all this? Well, let's think about, first of all, how long we've been here. If you're like me, you would perhaps accept that we have previous lives. I can't go into the detail on that at the moment, but let's assume that we have previous lives and we go back through time, and that was right back at the beginning of the evolution of what I call me. There was a spark of some kind that took life, and probably didn't take immediately a human life, took some form of life, even some amoebic form, some very simple form that could house that very simple spirit that was me all that way back. So, and perhaps over many, many thousands perhaps of lifetimes, we've been jumping from one level of being to another. I might have been an ant once, which could only perhaps hold so much consciousness, and then my consciousness might have expanded. I might have gone up through the animal kingdom, maybe multiple worlds, maybe over many universes, who knows. I don't know, I don't have memories of that, but there could be, over all this time, the soul has somehow gone on, got bigger. So what's this soul thing, first of all? So what do we mean by that, soul or spirit? And perhaps we put them together as the one thing for now. The collection of this sense of who I am, which is based upon my habits, my behaviours, my memories, my feelings, my thoughts, my attitudes, my sense of self, this idea of will that is developed through this as well. So all that bunch of things which constitutes what I call me has been jumping from one incarnation to another and gradually becoming more and more self-aware. Because if we look at the animal kingdom, they are aware, but they're not kind of self-aware in quite the way we are. They can't ask the sort of questions that we ask. They are guided by behaviour. And most people in this world are guided by behaviour, aren't they? I want to be a rich man, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. They're guided by drives, by will that is not strictly their own. It's coming from their learnt behaviour. And a point comes when we start to become more aware, and this is when we start the journey towards this idea of enlightenment, this idea of that maybe I can understand this more than just through rationality. We can use our brains, we can understand things, and our brains will understand all the things about the world out there, but it can't understand about the world in here. We can rationalise about who I am, and I think therefore I am, and all those type of ideas that really they go round and round in circle, the philosophers' ideas. They never actually get anywhere, because you're, as the Zen masters say, you're using a sword to try to that can cut but can't cut itself. That's what the rational mind is like. So we have to go beyond that, and we come to the conclusion that we can't use the brain really to come to this enlightened state. And this is what people like the Buddha taught, is that you have to use meditation. You have to go within and beyond the mind. So people talk about that, first of all, that enlightenment comes when thoughts stop. Well, that's all very well to say that, or to look between the thoughts, like the thoughts of the clouds and you look to the blue sky. That's all very well, but most of us are in a state of continual thought of some sort or other. Some people are tied up in an internal dialogue all the time. Your feelings are thoughts. So even if you're having a feeling, that's still a thought. That's still a sort of sensation, isn't it? There's information coming in all the time. So whatever we could define thought as, our feelings thoughts, emotions thoughts, sensations and perceptions, are they thoughts? It's all functions in the brain, isn't it? So people say, just go beyond thought. Don't really work. And if you can get to a state in meditation of zero thought, supposing you can, which you can, you get into states of absolute clarity of non-thinking, just being in a way. Yes, perhaps you can dive through that, as it were. Your consciousness can exist in a state beyond all sensation, beyond all feeling, beyond all thought, beyond all this, and then you enter the state, pow, you understand it all. But you come back, as soon as you have another thought, that enlightenment's gone, isn't it? Because the seeds of thought are always there, right? The seeds of thought are always there. So in essence, we are the consciousness, aren't we, behind this? We are the consciousness behind the thought. We're not the thought itself, we're having the thought. We're the consciousness behind it. We are consciousness. We're also being, because we exist. We're being. We're consciousness, and they say we're also, this is the Hindu idea, we're also bliss, is Sat Chit Ananda. We are consciousness, being and bliss. We're those three things, which is all very well to intellectualize, but even when I talk about that, we're still in the realm of thought. So other people say, well, okay, we can't get rid of the thought. What we've got to do is cut down the I. We've got to get rid of this sense of I. It's all ego. Everything out there is ego. Me, 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 me. And we see the world through this I, not a I, or a spiritual I even. We're seeing it through the self, right? So by experiencing the world through the self, we are colouring it, and therefore we're far from truth. We're far from enlightenment. We're still trapped in the world of the ego. So they say, cut down the I. Okay, we do that. We cut down the I. We spend our time in self-denial in some respects. Right from that first point when we were the amoebas and the ants and all the rest of it, when perhaps we had that consciousness without an I, we're going to go back to that in a way, but we're going to go back to that with a bigger sense of consciousness. Okay, we can do that, and we cut down the I. The I is gone. Pow, we're in enlightenment, Satori. We are in the blissful state of awareness. We are existing without I, and we know we're existing without I because it just is. It's just infinite bliss, infinite being, infinite bliss, and so forth. It's just endless, right? And then we come back, because as soon as we have a thought, or as soon as the sense of the I returns, the I comes back. The I cannot be cut down because it always grows back. We cannot, but the very fact that you're here means you're functioning and listening to this through the sense of I. Through your thoughts, through your I, it won't go away. It is still there. It is still back. It comes back as perennial as the grass. So we cannot destroy thought. The seeds are still there. We cannot destroy the I, because the I is always comes back. So what do? We therefore always think of enlightenment, therefore, as being something separate from us, right? Because we're now in the I state. Therefore, we are separate. We are not an enlightened being. We were enlightened. We're not enlightened now. Now, a lot of people get these states in meditation. I do. You do. I'm sure we do. I'm sure many people do. It's not just me. You have a state where realise it all, you understand it, you're there, you know what the answer is, and then you're back. And all the old routines come back, all the memories come back, all the attachments come back, all the will comes back, everything, all waff. You know, it's like a smoker having a cigarette for the first time after they've given up for 5 years. Oh, I want another one. You've broken it. You're back exactly where you were. So it creates a difficulty. So what do we do with the thoughts? What do we do with the I when we're in this situation? Well, my thoughts were, some people say not this, not this, not this. Neti, neti, neti. I am not that, I am not that, I am not that. This is another technique used in meditation by denial in a way. I am not this hand, right? I am not this body. I am not this person, Craig. I am not this person thinking about the person, Craig. I'm not anything I can think about, I'm not. Because that is, I'm observing it. So I'm the observer. No, I'm not the observer. Even that gets you into complications. Another way of looking at it, and which is the way I think we should look at this, is I am not only this. I am not only this hand. I am not only this body. I am not only this Craig. So I am that, but I'm also something more. Now that's my way of looking at it. Slightly different to what some people teach. And then I would also suggest that we look at the idea of who we are with a different perspective, because we can't destroy that self. We can't. So I'm not only that thought, all right? So that's where the thoughts link in. I'm not only that I, right? Okay, that's better. So who's that I? What do we do with it? Well, I think what we've got to do is make the I the servant, just as the thoughts are the servant. We make the I the servant. You see what I mean? So that I is the servant. But the servant of who? The servant of my ego? The servant of the divine. So in a way, this is how this I is subjugated. It becomes the I. It becomes the enlightened being's servant through service, through surrender, through humility, through modesty, through subjugation, but not subjugation, because this is where it's like the idea that comes now in the Bhagavad Gita, in that when we're confronted with the idea, we're in the battle of life, what do we do? The idea is let God drive the chariot. So it's God that is the master. Now, God being the divine absolute, right? And that the I, the little I, is the servant of that. So that's how we attain the divine state. Because then our life is driven not only by our will, because like I said, not neti again and going back, not only by our will, but also driven by the divine will as well. So we become in harmony with. This way, in my way of thinking, there's no conflict in us between this idea of my will and God's will. They become one, because we have allowed, we are in a state of service to the divine. It's a form of surrender. And I think when we come to that, then we come to what I could describe as the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment is not something separate. Not something separate from this very moment now where you're listening to me and I'm talking to you, or was talking to you and so forth, It's in this very, very moment that we can just realise that it's all one. Okay, now that sounds such a cliche when I say it like that. But there's no difference between me and what's out there. It's all one, because the I now is subjugated. The I now is just living in a way according to the will of God. And that will of God is based basically upon the ending of our own karma. All what's happening when we're in that state, when we realise who we really are, what we're seeing happening in the world is just the unfoldment of our karma. Now I don't mean bad things and good things, it's just the unfolding of things. It's like the vibration of what is left from what we've already done. Except now we flow along with it. I had a great dream the other night in which I was on a cart being carried by 2 white bullocks, and driving it was Sathya Sai Baba, the person I follow in India. And I thought, that's the dream. You don't have to follow your own will. Let God represent it. Him there representing God, run the chariot, and it'll all look after itself. So from this, we can enter that absolute state. At heart, what we are is God itself. This is what I mean by God now. We are that nirvana. We are that absolute state. We are absolute bliss. We are complete infinite consciousness. We are infinite being. We are those three things and beyond that. We are beyond even those three. And that's what we are. And everything else is unfolding. And we resist it. We come away from it because we keep coming back to this idea of me, I, me, ego. Of course we do. We're all doing it all the time. And I fall into it every few minutes, all the time. But then, if I allow myself, my I, to become the servant of those things, to go with the flow completely, to have absolute trust, total fearlessness, really, because you can be completely fearless with this, because nothing can possibly harm you when you've given in to the absolute flow of existence. And even if terrible things happen to me, it does not matter, because I'm one with the flow of existence. There we go. And I promised I'd make it simple, but I hope you can take away from that a few ideas. I think the most important things is, not only this. I am not this. I'm not this world, but then I am not only this world, so I am it as well. I am everything. You are everything. And whatever I'm talking about applies equally to you, because you too are the absolute state of existence. You are, in that case, already enlightened. We all are. Right, at the end of each piece, I like to just give you a little bit of news, if you've got the patience. Thank you for listening to a rather long video there. Jane and I have been doing some interesting stuff. At the moment, I'm writing a book, another new book. It won't be out for a while yet, but I'm writing about a man we went to see called, here's a picture of him, right? Now, Sharavana Baba, right? Very interesting man who I'm writing a book about. Because I was led to go and see him by the Nadi oracles to help find a cure for a illness. The Nadi told me I had to see this holy man at this particular time. He's been visiting England, he's going to Canada and places, he's around Europe. So, now, Sharavana Baba, you'll find out more about him when I finish my book. Other things Jane and I have been doing, we've both been doing a lot of readings lately now. I've relented. For years I don't do readings. I've started doing some readings online by phone. Most of them are gone. Sometimes there's a few slots available for that. That's not an advert because I get too many as it is. But no, I'm doing readings again. Jane's doing readings at home. So it's kind of a step at the moment, I feel, for us to be stepping back out there again into the real world a bit more. I hope that we'll be able to do some tours later. We're talking about that a lot. We want to do a tour of Ireland. We're talking about. I want to do some more workshops. No, not workshops. I want to do some more of the teaching groups for people. Basically, it's not strictly trance teaching. It's teaching that I do in a state of what I would call deep meditation. A lot of mediums would call it trance, but it's something slightly different. I might be able to film some of that later on when we get it going. If anybody actually wants to take part in any of these activities that Jane and I are going to be doing, go and join on our email list, but better still, just send me a quick note through the contact page of my site, and we'll always make sure that you're on the list if we've got anything coming up, because it'll only be for smaller groups of people, these things. So yeah, that's the main things we're doing. We're also going to be going to France shortly, and we're going to Spain shortly as well, but I'll tell you a bit more about that later. Anyway, that's what we're up to. It's still good, it's still fun, it's still good being here, and we're still doing our work towards finding enlightenment, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next week. And don't forget, make some comments. Follow me if you're not following me. And also, I'm going to stick another ad on the end of this for Mystic Journey to India, my movie. Yeah, it's going, quite a lot of people watching it, and I do thank you so much for the fantastic reviews you've been putting on Amazon about A Mystic Journey to India. I'm really great. Actually, at this point, and this is tempting fate, but every single review has been a 5-star review, both in America and in the UK. So thank you guys. Thanks very much for that. And I hope you go and have a watch of that if you can, because that does express the essence of what our work is all about at the moment. Thanks. See you next time. See you next week. Don't forget, on the weekly channel. Bye. I have discovered a secret oracle in India that has on it the name of my mother, the name of my father, my name, my brother's name, my wife's name, all the details about my life from the moment I was born and right into the future. And it even tells me the time of my death. And to access this oracle, all it needed was my thumbprint. I'm here in India on my first mystic journey. In the UK and USA, Jane and I are known as the most psychic couple on the planet.
I really enjoyed the reading with Craig because he hit some real accuracies about my father and our relationship.
I've been a psychic medium for years. We have both had a fruitful life and seen many mystical things, but my trip to India has certainly opened even my eyes. As psychics, we have both been invited to do many TV shows about the paranormal, but what I'm about to experience in India is absolutely astonishing. So astonishing that even my wife Jane couldn't get her head round it. I have come to India to visit its temples and to do its rituals and change my fate. Everything the Oracle has told me about my life so far is astonishing. What it has to say is so mind-boggling that I feel compelled to make this crazy journey in order to undertake the magical remedies it prescribes. I want to find out if these nadi leaves are a myth or the real thing. And if so, maybe I can uncover their secrets and discover if they can help other people too. On this journey, I meet a holy man who sleeps in a raging fire and is claimed will live for hundreds of years. This Siddhi yogi never eats, lives in a cave, and few people ever get to meet him. I am guided by 2 astrologers that help me clear my karma and explain to me the rituals that I must undertake. I am stunned by the beautiful landscapes and overwhelmed by the magical temples and mystic places. I love the people and the animals of India. I am visiting places where few Westerners ever go. It's a cultural shock and spiritual awakening. I feel an overwhelming inner transformation. Will I find the guiding light I need? My search takes me thousands of miles across India's breathtaking landscapes, and I see magnificent things. To clear my karma, the Oracle has told me to do charitable work, undertake magical rituals and remedies. This is the adventure of a lifetime. This is my mystic journey.